today's episode is going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, kind of a hodgepodge of sort of, I think, just games we're playing in general right now. I think we'll probably touch on a lot of different games without going into too much depth on any one of them. What we would love is to hear listener feedback on games that you guys are playing or anything that we touch on that you guys think is interesting, and we would love to then take that and then go into deep dives in future episodes with it. So with that being said, I think kind of loosely we're planning on touching on games such as Baldur's Gate 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre game just came out recently. Maybe Polya, I messed around with it. I don't think any of you guys have touched it. So maybe we'll get to that, maybe not. Dark and Darker definitely warrants some updates. And then, Warren, was there anything else that was kind of strong?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Shredder's Revenge. It's a Ninja Turtles beat 'em up.
So, what do we want to kick it off with?
We can start with Baldur's Gate 3. I can give a kind of breakdown of it before we dive in.
Sure.
So Baldur's Gate 3 is a CRPG, which stands for computer RPG, but it's any kind of game you imagine. That's what it stands for. It's
I believe you.
It's essentially any game you remember that has a kind of point and click style to it, with often attached to like turn-based combat and a lot of dialogue-driven choices that can change the narrative, things like that. Like old school Fallout games fall in there. There's a game series called Wasteland that lands in there as well. Disco Elysium. But this one is developed by Larian Studios, the company that made So they did Divinity: Original Sin and Divinity: Original Sin 2. And those were essentially their resume to get the rights to actual Wizards of the Coast Dungeons & Dragons property.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to do that from the beginning, and after the first Divinity game came out, they asked Wizards of the Coast if they could have it. They're like, can we make the third one? And Wizards of the Coast was like, well, you don't have enough pedigree. Like, we don't know enough about you. We can't trust that. So Divinity Original 2, I think it was even before it properly released, but like once they had it all down and they could show them, that was when they got the rights to Baldur's Gate 3, and I think they started like the pre-production almost immediately, like when Divinity Original 2 came out, because a lot of people were trying to get the property after Baldur's Gate 2, because the first two were made by BioWare. You can kind of feel it if you'd ever played Dragon Age. If you ever played Dragon Age, you'd really feel the similarities, like in the dialogue and the kind of presentation of a lot of that stuff. And this has a lot of that DNA. Larian got it. I think it almost went to like Obsidian, a couple others, but it's great. It takes place in the like Dungeons & Dragons like 5th edition kind of rule set with what's the world? Faerun. It's very, very like cookie cutter D&D, like the ones that if you go read any of the 5th edition books, that's usually the setting they default to. And no, it's been great. I've been playing the hell out of it. Red started playing it. We're pretty close to each other as far as progression goes, so we won't go much past that or go into too deep a detail.
Yeah, I wonder if I can see my hours in the game right now. I would just like to say that I absolutely love the genre, and I think this is going to be one of those topics, as many of these topics will be, where it's like 2/3 of us are like in on it, and then one third of us is not. So, Warren and I have been playing the hell out of it. I think it's probably in fact a genre that Xell's totally disinterested in. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna be a bit of a viewer for Baldur's Gate 3. I have a lot of questions about it, and I've watched it, but I tried Divinity Sin, and I think it's just a little too slow and like story driven for me. Like
I fell off Divinity Original Sin 2 as well.
I did too, but I did love it, and I can't pinpoint a reason why I fell off.
Yeah, I think a big thing that really hooks me in a way that Divinity didn't was the cutscenes, like actually getting down to ground level and talking to people in that way, and not staying in that isometric top-down kind of view, like helps you engage more with the characters, especially when it's all dialogue. Like there's spoken dialogue for everything, and I'm not I don't believe that was the case for Divinity. I mean, it might have been.
I think it was, and you know what? As I said, I can't pinpoint it. I think I actually pinpointed it. But go on, please.
No, that was it. What was the reason you fell off?
Hey,
Yeah.
give it to us.
Yeah. So when I was playing Divinity Original Sin 2, in my mind, very, very similar games. The beautiful things about these games is there's so much choice, there's so much options, and there's so much RNG, and that is a lot of fun. It's a great time when I go into a dialogue option with an NPC, and there's like all these like radical different paths I can take. You know, I can try to use a persuasion check or an intimidation check, and depending on like how you built your character, you might be, you know, more inclined to be an intimidating character, or you might be very charming, right? A lot of really cool ways to interact with the world, and combat works the same way too. The problem that I had with Divinity Original Sin 2 is quick save, quick load.
Does Baldur's Gate not have that?
It does, but I strictly put I put a strict rule set on myself that I would not save scum, and I think it's made all the difference in the world.
I'm playing it the same.
If you-
The only, I don't know about you. The only time that I don't save scum, for people that don't know, is keeping yourself saved so often that if you make one choice that you were like, oh, I feel like maybe the other one might have been better. A lot of people, when there's nothing wrong with this if you play this way, but they'll just load up 5 seconds prior and make the different choice because they didn't like you know, the result they got.
Or you fail a check of some kind, right? You know, like I'm trying to persuade this guy, it failed. Okay, reload 5 seconds earlier, try again until it works. And the problem is what happened to me in Divinity Original Sin 2 is it dragged out everything, right? Everything was like, I'm doing everything 10 times because I'm getting the perfect result every single time. You know, that fight didn't go perfect. I'm just going to do it again. This dialogue didn't go perfect. I'm going to do it again. I want to know what all the other dialogue options were. I'm going to reroll this conversation 5 times and see where they all go. And it just becomes like overwhelming and too much, and it kind of takes the magic out of the game. Whereas going into
removes the replayability too, right?
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
If you accidentally kill someone, and you know, as you're getting down the playthrough, you're like, man, I really want to know what happens if I didn't kill that guy. Like now I can do a whole nother playthrough just for it.
Yes. And I want to punt this one to Warren, but one of the actual beautiful things about the game is, you know, even if you fail something, or even if, you know, what you intended to do didn't work out, the game is so expansive and so like multifaceted in how they approach every scenario and every dialogue that like you could open an entire can of worms in a direction you didn't even know like was possible or existed. And so it's almost a good thing to just accept your failures and keep playing the game without save scumming.
Yeah, there's a couple. The only time that I did what could even be loosely, you know, related to save scumming is stuff within actually the place you're at. There's a goblin camp a little bit into kind of like the first main quest feeling type of thing, and there were certain moments where I would say the wrong thing to the wrong person. It's so hostile in there. The way I got in, everyone's not hostile, but they kind of are, and there's moments where I said the wrong thing and just turned the entire camp against me, and it was just like, okay, well, I die. Like, that's the result of this one, is that we are going to full wipe because I fucked up. And, like, I see it coming. There's no real, like, way out of it. There's no, like, go to jail for some of them. So it's just like, okay, I'm going to reload because I don't want to die.
So what happens if you do die? Is it like you respawn in an inn and now the storyline's different, or is it like a game over, you have to reload?
It's just a game over. If you can try to, like, if you were in a situation, you could try to, like, get one party member out and flee. And there's a great guy I want to talk about who is, like, the most video game piece of the video game at your camp that you can res party members with. But, like, even doing that, I'm like, I'm just going back to step one, and then, you know, it made more sense for me just to be like, I want to see the stories play out in here and not just, like, have this giant fort I have to spend hours slowly killing my way through.
So I kind of have a lot of questions from a viewer standpoint that I think might help set the foundation a little bit.
Sure.
Because I don't know very much about this game. Like, character creation wise, what is that like? Can you pick any class? How deep can you go into, like, the visuals?
The visuals are very Very open. Very open.
How did you ever get past it?
Oh man, you just settling in on one of 4 dick options took me a while. It took me a while.
I mean, they show you the whole dick.
The whole dick.
You get a select.
Yeah, so you can pick one of the characters that are like, you know, those main party members you get throughout the game. You can pick one of those to be your player character. But I think in doing that, you would rob yourself of every cool thing that character goes through. Like all the cool dialogue that those actors have performed. Like you're missing out on it, so I didn't want to do that. I made what I considered a very like basic kind of dude. I just made like a Legolas ass elf. He's a wood elf ranger, right? So he's just and then I use him as like a blank slate to just see the cool stories that my characters have. But yeah, the customization like visually is very cool, and then even deeper than that, I mean stat wise it gets real crunchy.
Oh yeah.
Real crunchy. And
it's deep. It's deep.
And then on top of that, you get to pick things like your background, which influences future dialogue options. The class you pick gives you dialogue options as you play the game. There's certain things
not just class, race, subclass, like
sub-race, all of it. Yeah.
Sub-race, like, and all of these have like in world interaction governing like factors. Along with like a pretty robust stat system. Sorry to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, you're good. It lends itself to that. Like I've had a couple ranger specific options that helped me calm down some like hostile like animals in the wild, because I'm able to basically have speak with animals on like 100% of the time. And there's I saw a video of one. There's a pretty early thing. Red, you're already past this part, so I imagine you found them. But there is a great throwaway thing. It doesn't have too much implication, but you hear this noise outside of this barn. And you go and you open the door. You been there?
Oh my god. Oh yeah. This? Oh, I've been there.
So you go in there and you open the door to the barn, and there's just a bugbear, which is essentially like a Chewbacca-ass, just hairy man, going to town doggy style on an ogre woman.
Oh.
And they both stand up. Clip. They both stand up all bashful, like, what the fuck?
He's all, and she turns around. She goes, "You ruined it."
Yeah, they're like, we're caught. What are we gonna do? And I didn't have any options that I could do other than just fight them.
No,
she was
very upset.
I was just like, I'm sorry, and they're like, you're dead, and so I had to kill him. But I saw a video online of that same situation, but it was a barbarian, and the barbarian has a dialogue option that no one else had.
Oh.
And it was just like, it was basically just insulting the bugbear, saying he wasn't fucking her good enough. He's just like, that was weak. That was really weak. And then they both get really bashful, and they're like, what the fuck, man? And then like they both just like saunter off defeated.
I thought you were gonna say he shows him how to do it.
Yeah, and then you get in there.
Which honestly, like, you couldn't put it past this game.
It might have been an option for a different class. I don't know. There's just everything.
Now I have like a million other questions, but so like based on the class and sub-race interactions you guys were talking about, charisma is usually a thing in like Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm assuming if you put points into like charisma, it would increase dialogue options or things of that nature.
I would love to take this one a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
So I knew going into this that I wasn't going to save scum, and I knew from Divinity Original Sin 2 that dialogue options were going to have like very real effects on the game. Meaning most dialogue you enter in has like, 10 different inputs that you could, approach the situation in, and then there could be as many as 10 different outputs. Anything from, here, take all my money, to me and all these other guys are going to kill you now. Right? And so I actually built a very high charisma character so that I could try to navigate the social situations as best I could. So charisma is very much a thing. It's not the only thing that affects dialogue options. If you have a very strong strength-based orc, you could get away with like a lot of intimidation type things. It really just depends on, what you want out of the game and how you want to play it, which I think I say this every episode, so it's kind of like maybe a little obnoxious, but I think it's a testament to the quality of the game that there's so many
100%.
different ways to approach anything, and there's so many different outputs to the way you approach it. I don't know if that was at the core of your question, but I wanted to jump in when you said charisma.
Yeah, I think that they did a really good job with this one. Where, yeah, I feel like a lot of people had the same. I almost did the same thing, which is just like I need to buff my charisma. That needs to be my number one thing going in because it's gonna get me out of 1,000 situations. And then as I'm playing, I'm realizing that like there's a ton of situations where intimidation, lying, which I think also falls into charisma, but there was ones that were factoring in my dexterity.
Yeah.
Like it really is just like however you want to play, like we're gonna give you options that feel good.
Yeah, even things like wisdom and intelligence come into fact. Like sometimes when you're in a conversation, the NPC will be talking about like a historical event, and the game will just automatically roll like a wisdom check and see like, all right, are you wise enough to understand or get this historical reference? And if your character passes that check, then you have like new dialogue options open to you.
Yeah, it does
Very
a lot of
D&D.
checks. It does a lot of checks on the back end that you would. It gamified things that the DM would be asking them to do. Like it cleans it up and just makes so many of those things automatic. Like I walked by a statue, and when I was walking by the statue, it just automatically above every character's head rolled a history check, and then one person got it, and then that person was like, "Oh, I know this statue. That's this person." And then that knowing what they were about gave me a clue on how to unlock a chest that was nearby the statue based on like what they value.
Yeah, I know what chest you're talking about.
Yeah, and that stuff is so cool.
Yeah. Same thing with like trap detection. Traps will be like totally invisible, and if when you walk by, all your characters will roll like a perception check, and if one of them passes the perception check, he'll be like, "Oh, there's a trap over there." It'll highlight it for you. But if all your characters fail, all you know is like shit. Something's nearby until you step on a landmine.
What did I not perceive? But that's the thing. In D&D, that's the same thing. If you walk into a room and your dungeon master's like, "All right, can everybody roll a perception check?" And then they all do it, and they all fail, and like everyone tells the rolls, and the DM just goes, "Okay, yeah, go ahead, like do your thing," and everyone's just like,
Poke around.
it still gives that suspicion of like, what did I fuck up? What did I fuck up?
You know what I'll say is I do have a criticism of the game. There is like D&D, which for the record I'm not incredibly familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. I know that you have like a D20, a dice that can roll anywhere from 1 to 20, right? And rolling a natural 20 is called a critical success, and rolling a natural 1 is called a critical failure. And I think you can't like enhance those one way or the other. Like it's either full success or full failure, like no bonuses.
Yeah.
I have this general feeling, and maybe this is bullshit, but I thought that when you rolled nat 20s or nat 1s, like not only were they either guaranteed success or failure, but they would have like some extra bonus effect of some kind. And I don't notice that in this game. It's like if I roll a nat 20 on something and it succeeds, like it just succeeds as if I just passed the check. Same thing with the failure. I kind of wish that like rolling the 1 or the 20 would do something extra too.
I imagine that was something that, because you got to figure it was like adding a 2 in 20 chance thing that now we have to record an extra piece of dialogue or have all these established bonuses set up, like just from a developing standpoint for something that 95 or whatever the percentage chance to get a nat 20 is percent of people get on each roll. Like you have to have essentially like an entire new stack of stuff prepared for like an unlikely scenario.
I would argue that's this game's bread and butter though.
Yeah, and like it's just I don't know, maybe their way of doing it, because if you're a DM and you're playing and someone rolls a nat 20, like you'll give them a little extra. You'll make it special somehow. Yeah. Like even if they want to do the impossible, like a nat 20 should get you as close to impossible as possible. And a nat 1 should, like, instead of not being able to make a jump, you have you tripped and fell down the
You
cliff.
snap your
right?
ankle and
Exactly, like you
chip your
broke your
tooth.
fucking leg. You make it either as good as possible or as bad as possible in an entertaining way. And I think
Yeah.
this game is just like, you know what? Guarantee the success or guarantee the failure. Like, there's a lot of other shit we gotta navigate. But I agree. I've gotten 20s, and you're just like, oh okay, good.
Yeah.
Talk about save scumming though. Like, not only would that be a developer's nightmare to add all that extra stuff, but also just like the person that's the completionist is like, oh god, now I have to critical fail and critical success every single
To
interaction
see
in
what
the
I
game.
get.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly don't think that. So Warren had just brought this up before the episode, but I don't think that you could experience every interaction in the game, because you're talking about like the butterfly effect. Like, the small decision branch choice you make at the beginning of the game could lead you 5,000 dialogue options away from how it could have been if you'd made the other decision at the beginning of the game. So Warren had brought up the statistic that supposedly there's 10,000 different endings. Now, we postulate, right, that that's probably a little exaggeratory. They're probably counting every tiny variable, right, that can be, different. I'm sure there's not 10,000 extremely unique endings. But, to the point that you're making, right, like, I actually don't know if it's possible to experience every single dialogue option for every interaction. I mean, I don't know how big your party gets. I probably have, like, 6 characters right now. Every single one of those characters, you can choose to, like, actively be that character and talk to an NPC, and every single one of them will have a different conversation and a different set of interactions with those NPCs.
Jeez, that is
17.
so
By the way,
much.
I found it. I just looked it up. It's
17?
17,000 possible endings.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
But you gotta figure, like I was telling Red, I'm like, okay, one of these Asterian's dead. One, he's alive. There might be like, I imagine there's probably like, 3 to 10 like really very, very different versions of the ending, right? Like there's probably a handful of extremely varied versions where you're like fully fighting different last bosses, allying with different people, things like that. But then the rest of it is just like, yeah, and in this one you fucked Shadowheart. I don't know.
And this is a question I'm going to ask for every game, but classes? What classes are there?
All the basic ones from D&D.
Yeah.
You got
combinations.
Yeah, so there's the base classes, there's branching paths for all of them, but you got fighter, ranger, wizard, sorcerer, druid, rogue, warlock, bard, I'm sure I'm missing one.
Barbarian.
Barbarian,
Paladin.
Yeah, there's just
Cleric.
and-
Did you say cleric?
cleric, yeah.
Necromancer?
I'm hoping. I don't know, but I'm hoping.
So I think necromancer.
Is that warlock?
I was gonna say, is that a D&D class or is it just?
Well, there's
I-
subclasses in addition
It's
to the
the s-
classes, and some of
the
them you unlock
school
like
of
as you level up. So
There's things that do warlock stuff basically, but it falls under wizard, school of necromancy. So it's a subclass of wizard.
Oh man, I'm playing a warlock, dude, and I was really hoping that warlock would branch into necromancy.
I think warlock does too.
Oh, okay.
I feel like warlock definitely has. That's their whole thing, right? Warlock is that like dark blood magic type shit.
Yeah, well,
all the
that's
time.
that's the route I'm trying to take my character, and it's like the cool thing about warlock is your spells roll off your charisma, so it was like really synergistic with what I was doing.
Did you know that there's some stuff in the game that like will be affected by like your class stuff can be affected by story things that happen? Like,
Oh, that is cool.
so
I
there's a class in D&D called the Oathbreaker Paladin, and paladins, if you play it, you have to play it like a paladin. You have to be like, lawful good in your
Yeah.
decisions. If you keep doing unlawful shit, apparently your god shows up at night and he's just like, what the fuck? Like we're done. I'm done with you.
So
And then
sick.
you become an Oathbreaker Paladin with a different set of moves and shit like that. Like stuff like this, constant shit like that.
Yeah.
It's gonna make it infinitely replayable for me. I can
Super sick game. I couldn't be enjoying it more. I think you and I are still like relatively early in the game. We
Act one
probably
for sure.
yeah. I know there's like other stuff we want to get to as well. Is there anything else about Baldur's Gate 3 that like we definitely want to jump into right now, or I think it'd probably be worth doing like a revisit as we get more hours in.
I think the next 20 episodes of the podcast are going to have like a small segment where it's just like, can I talk about this game and why I love it?
Okay, I have one last question.
Yeah.
Because I had seen some rumors that there were some scaling issues with Baldur's Gate. Have you guys run into anything like that?
For me, I think I'm too early to tell.
What do you mean by scaling issues?
Yeah, so someone came into my stream recently and was like, I have a javelin throwing fighter or something like that, and there's a way that you could stack like throwing damage with like poison damage and like lightning damage, and it was like this interaction of scaling things where he was doing like 400 damage every interaction.
That sounds like just a break that Larian's been doing hotfix updates on stuff like that constantly. And sure, a lot of people are going to choose to not update if they want to break the game, but like, why do that?
Oh, sorry, let me correct myself. It was he got a bonus from doing damage to enemies that were well lit, and he was using lightning while throwing his javelin, which lit up the enemies, which then scaled up the throw damage, like something weird like that.
That's great. I love that shit.
Interesting.
Like, that there's so many. It's hard not to imagine there's got to be some wonky interactions.
The
just
game's
because
definitely
there
gonna
are
be
so many
breakable.
interactions, right? Like, but that's the thing. The studio is actively fixing so many things. Like, one of the issues was, and Red, you might have run into this later on if they hadn't fixed it, because correct me if I'm wrong, you're playing a gnome, right?
Yeah.
Little guy, and there was issues with a couple like romance scenes where characters weren't like kneeling down to kiss; they were just doing it normal.
I actually haven't unlocked any romance yet.
I have. I've gotten a little closer with Shadowheart. That's gonna be my bae. Unless I fuck it up.
I have no doubt there's ways to break the game. It's so complex, and it's like stats and all that stuff. That being said, I think you'd have to kind of go out of your way to find ways to break the game. And for a game like this, like it's single player, of course. I certainly wouldn't want to. I wouldn't feel good going around the game like one-shotting everything. I think that would rob the challenge and everything. But
on that note, after you finish your thought, I got something.
I mean, that was pretty much it. I'm sure there are ways to like abuse calculations that maybe weren't intended, or maybe they were and they just work really well together. That you could certainly min-max the game into probably being too easy. Approaching it from I'm not looking anything up, I'm not save scumming. I really doubt I'm gonna run into anything like that. I'm too stupid to figure it out. So, the most complex things I'm doing right now is just like I'm gonna have one guy throw a pot of grease and then the other guy use fire to light the whole thing up, and now I've created like an AOE fire. Stuff like that. It's like cool synergies, but like it's not that strong.
Yeah, I would love to. Once we both, I'm past that main like opening quest where there's druids and tieflings and goblins and there's just interactions with that. Red, once you're past that, I want to retouch on this and talk about the routes we went about that, navigating it to see how similar or different they are.
Yeah, we can do like a Act 1 spoiler episode where we like deep dive into it or something.
Yeah. The last thing that I did want to bring up was the fact that you said it's a single player game. It's not.
Fair point.
You can play with up to 4 people. This is the part I love. So you can play with up to 4 people, so your entire party could just be made up of your actual friends, and then it would probably become a very D&D-like thing. And the way the game handles that is, you can, like, say if it was just me and Red playing, we would each take control of the 2 remaining NPCs. So, like, one would attach to one of us and the other. And you could change that up or, whatever. But we would basically control how their narrative gets pushed as the game goes on with choices. And then as you go to talk to people, like say Red went up to the next like main kind of quest giver situation and talked to them, if he opted to do it publicly, I would be able to essentially join in on the conversation. My character would kind of just show up in the background and I would be able to see what he's doing, and then we would vote on the choices we make. So like I could highlight certain dialogue and be like, you should do this one, do this one, do this one. And like it could become a whole thing like that. And so I can see if you were playing with 4 people, it'd be a lot of fun to be like, no, do this, like, and like if you're playing like gnome barbarians, you could throw each other and shit like that, and like
Yeah, I've had stronger characters in my party throw my gnome.
Mhm.
It's actually been
I love
useful. Um,
Yeah, that's actually really cool. If you guys are willing to do a playthrough where like you handled all the story, I would definitely do a multiplayer playthrough.
where you just want to play the tactics combat.
I just want to fight, yeah.
You'd
I just want
pay-
to fight
you'd
and put
pay,
stats in.
What, $60-$70 for the whole game?
I
I've spent more money on worse entertainment value.
I was gonna say I would love to do like a live stream with. I was saying just Red because I didn't figure you'd be interested, but if you would be down too, all three of us playing could actually be a lot of fun to have a separate save like that,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
where we just go in as like a bunch of fighters.
This might be fun to couch co-op with the lady
Yes. So that's the interesting thing about it is coming to
too.
PlayStation at the end in September. I can't remember the exact date.
September
And then it's
2nd.
the intent was that it was
72-hour early access. Sorry, go
Oh my
ahead.
God.
Have you looked this up or?
He just knows that. He just keeps it. But the interesting thing is that it was supposed to come to Xbox at the same time. They still say it's going to be by the end of the year. But the big thing they had to navigate and make sure that was good was split screen. So consoles are going to support split screen. And the reason it's coming to PlayStation first isn't any kind of licensing thing. It's that Xbox has a very, for a lot of developers, very annoying thing they do where you have to develop a game for the S and the X. And if people don't know, the Series S is weaker than the Series X. So a lot, it pisses off a lot of devs because then you're like, okay, we figured it out for the X, but now you're saying that we have to be able to figure it out for the S and like find out what concessions have to be made when you're playing it on that version. And so they're trying that's what's taking them longer with that, is that they just gave them another hurdle they had to figure out essentially because Xbox is trying to has to put that requirement on people.
Guess we know which console's superior.
Oh,
Fuck.
Get in the comments.
Get in the comments. All right. I don't think there's a ton to say on this one, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre dropped recently.
Oh, I got some stuff to say about it.
Oh man.
This is going to be a negative.
You can give the breakdown on this one.
Yeah. So a lot of the audience for Texas Chainsaw Massacre is coming from a game called Dead by Daylight. And Dead by Daylight's genre, as I've heard it discussed, is called asymmetrical horror game. And the idea is you've got killers versus survivors. In Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they call it family versus not survivors. Victims. Thank you. Victims.
Family victims.
Yeah. Whole idea is, and I'll just describe Texas Chainsaw Massacre. 4 victims, 3 family members. The 4 victims all wake up chained to meat hooks in the basement, and Leatherface is down there. And the victim's goal is to escape the property. There's 3 different maps currently. The family's goal is to basically murder all the victims before they can escape. And so it's a very like cat and mouse I'm gonna say this. It's supposed to be like a very stealth-based game. I think as it's the meta's churning out, it's not really stealth-based, but
Speedrun based.
it's I think the game, I was really enjoying playing it for the first week or so. I think the meta's kind of settled out. I think the game's got some really significant problems, but I like the genre. It's interesting. It's a hot game right now. It's worth talking about. Warren and I have been playing a little bit of it here and there at night. Xell got to witness me play it in what was probably like the worst 2 games I've ever played. So yeah, with that background, what do you think we should dive into on it, guys?
Let's start with the positives, maybe end with positives, but I'm enjoying it. I never did Dead by Daylight, probably because the idea of being the hunter sounded a lot more appealing, and there's only the one, so it almost like felt like it would be like a single player game in a way. You know what I mean? This one seemed a lot more appealing because you get to be the hunter with your friends, and I'm enjoying it. Yeah, there's definitely frustrations and imbalances. It's a new game, and if they don't address those, it could kill the game quick, I imagine. But it's I don't know, when we hop on and we're doing it, it's extremely satisfying, like cutting people off through these mazes of levels and yelling out the direction they're going. They're this way, and then they get caught in a trap you laid, and I got him, and you guys pinch in, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely not for the squeamish. It's extremely over-the-top violence. If you're familiar with, horror movies in that genre, it's
let Texas Chainsaw Massacre be a clue to you. It's very gory.
Yeah, I mean, every match opens up with a cutscene of Leatherface, like, essentially chopping a teen in half. It's just like, maybe a little, you probably didn't have to go that hard, but they did.
Yeah, so I've actually watched quite a bit of it. I watch a bigger streamer that's famous in that genre.
Which one?
Are we name dropping? Angry Pug. I watch Angry Pug quite a bit.
I've watched a lot of Angry Pug too. And I asked which one because there's two big Dead by Daylight streamers. Angry Pug's one of them, and True Talent is another one. And they're very opposite. I don't think they like each other. I'm not sure, but I think they're kind of like mortal enemies. And one main's killers, typically one main survivors, and they have vastly different perspectives. I watch them both. I like hearing both their perspectives, but extreme opposites. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick. So go ahead.
Yeah, so my perspective is actually not based on his at all. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre seems to do everything poorly. Like, Warren, if you like this game, I feel like you would absolutely love Dead by Daylight. Most games I go into, I kind of take it from like a streamer viewer perspective. Viewing Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a nightmare. Like, it is just so chaotic. The goal is not clear. Like, what they're trying to achieve, where they're at, like, it's just chaos. Like, Dead by Daylight is so easy from a viewer's standpoint to be able to watch the game and just know, like, there's 4 people that are alive, there's 1 bad guy, the 4 people have to get to generators and then escape. Like, it's a really easy and kind of like scary viewer experience. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just like chaos.
It is chaos sometimes. I think a lot of that could come with the balancing stuff. I've watched a decent amount of Dead by Daylight too. True Talent's a funny one to bring up. I don't know if you guys know the history, but I actually kind of briefly knew him in an online person's perspective. Yeah, we were in. So we were in a relationship together. No, he popped in during a raid from someone else while I was playing a completely opposite game, because at the time he was a 200 viewer Dark Souls 1 PvP player. Like, that's what he did.
Interesting.
And so I was watching that, very, extremely niche, right? And he happened to be in the thing, and when I saw his name go across for the raid, I was like, oh shit, dude, like, not to take away from the guy that raided me, but I know you. And then we ended up playing some Rocket League together at one time and shit like that. But yeah, I remember he jumped on Dead by Daylight, so I watched a decent amount of it. I was about to say never got it myself, but then I looked at my Steam and realized I bought it. It probably happened during a Steam sale if it was really cheap. I'm sure I picked it up and just never installed it. But yeah, it was one of those things where I saw this game and was just kind of wondering, like, it's cool that they got the IP, but Dead by Daylight also gets the IPs for all these characters and stuff constantly. Like, aren't all the killers, like, many of them based off, existing, like, horror icons?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have like Jason and
it's
Freddy
one of those things
Krueger.
where you just have to ask, like, what is this one changing and bringing to the table? And obviously that it's adding killers, making it like a team on team experience.
Wait,
my worry is the balance.
Well, the balance I think is going to be a nightmare. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it right, but just as someone that's played both games, so I think my perspective is going to be a little bit more nuanced here. Xell describes kind of like witnessing chaos. I don't know if I would agree as much. I mean, it's a chaotic game, but Dead by Daylight and Texas Chainsaw Massacre are, on a surface level, they look very similar in just like this general objective, right? Killers versus survivors. But mechanically they work very, very differently, and they're vastly different games in the way that you play them, which is worth calling out. Um, I think from the survivor's perspective, I don't think there's that much difference in like watching someone play Dead by Daylight versus watching someone play Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Your objective's a little bit different. I would argue Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually does it better. I don't think I would say it does it worse for the survivors, in the sense that survivors in Dead by Daylight, your only goal is get generators open, go to one of the two doors that open up the exact same way, stand there, channel it, and then escape. Where they varied it up in Texas Chainsaw Massacre is there's a larger array of tool sets that you interact with on the map. So you're grabbing tools to break locks, you're grabbing bones to shiv killers, or stun grandpa, or kill chickens, which are kind of like serve as like little alerts. There's like med kits. There's more things I think to just kind of interact with, and more ways to approach. And the way you escape is varied also. There's an escape where you put a fuse into a fuse box, pull that lever, and then go find a door somewhere else. There's escapes where you disconnect car batteries from electric fences, or you open steam valves. These things I think are the positives and the variability they added into Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But because of all that added complexity, I think they're having a lot of balance challenges right now. And then, maybe this is a little bit separate too, but they're having a lot of hacker problems right now too, which is devastating for this type of game. We've seen it kill games like The Cycle. Like, if you don't get hacker problems under control, your player base is gone, game's dead.
Yeah, that was when I stopped playing Apex. It was like one game,
Yeah.
I thought I saw one, and then the next game, 100% got killed by one, and I was just like, I'm good. I'm not dealing with this. I got told it was fixed, but it was like, bridge is burned. I'm not coming back. Like, I've moved on. It's okay.
The whole shooter genre is pretty much dead for me. The hacking problem is just so bad, and I don't know. I've seen articles come out saying that it's just not like financially viable for companies to do anything about it. Like, they don't see a big return on investment if they get rid of hackers,
I can
which
see that.
seems weird to me.
Dedicate people to it. If you're not bringing enough money, then are they hiring people that are trying to combat hackers, or are their devs just trying to like close the doors that hackers are opening? A lot like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game.
It's funny that you brought it up, just because as a funny side note, like, Xell and I don't know, we were just bullshitting one day, and he showed me that, like, you can go on TikTok pretty much any point in time and just, like, look up Apex hacking, and there is someone or multiple people just live stream them hacking in Apex Legends, just unpunished, like, just literally
All day long.
It's gonna sound bad, but free games. When a game is free and the person has the ability to just, I got banned, I guess I'll just turn on this account. 1 second later. At least in Counter-Strike, like, you had to drop $30 to do it again. It's like, at least you know that you're hitting them somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, that's the crazy thing, though. It's like they aren't getting banned. Like, these guys will live stream them hacking 7-8 hours straight every single day. And not only are they not getting banned in Apex, they're not getting banned in TikTok. I report them every single time, and the report comes back with no violations. And these guys they literally hack live on stream all day long, every day, with no punishment.
It's disgusting. We can deep dive on hacker hatred.
That's probably a whole
At some
episode.
point.
Yeah,
That really could be its own thing. I'll put that.
I have so much to say.
Google Doc.
Yeah, I already have it in there. I already have it in there.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I've been wanting to talk about.
Yeah, things like that are going to kill the game. I think if it stayed in the state it's in, with balance tweaks, hopefully incoming, it's a game that I could see. It would never be my main squeeze game, but it's a game that I could see myself, asking Red as I do now, like, hey man, want to hop on, do a couple matches? Oh yeah, let's go for it.
It's at a surface value, like, it's a lot of fun. Like, when we hop in at night and let's go be the killers, right, and like chop some people up, and it goes well, like, it's a good time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree. I don't think for me it's gonna have like a ton of longevity. I can't see myself like playing it every day for years or anything like that. And quite frankly, I think it's gonna be a balanced nightmare. Zell, I'd like to hear. It sounded like you had like a laundry list of negative things about it. What else have you either seen or heard?
Well, yeah. Let me clarify because I have not played this game. I've only watched it.
Zell hates this game. He keeps texting me when I play it. He says, "I see you on Discord and you're playing it. Fuck you. Fuck you."
That's how I feel when you fire Rocket League.
I would love if you sent me a message every single time going, "Shit game, shit person."
I like you less.
Because I know in the back of my mind all the unfinished great games that you have, like Final Fantasy 16 and Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Baldur's Gate 3, and then I see your ass on Rocket League, and I'm like, you piece of shit.
Meanwhile, this guy's got an emulator for an Android up on his PC, and he's playing like Lord of the Rings Star Character Collector 5.
I love that shit, dude.
And then he's looking over at me playing Rocket League going, wow, that game's ass. My Frodo's 10.
My Frodo is like 45.
See what I fucking say?
Also a mediocre game. But yeah, so other things I don't like about Texas Chainsaw Massacre is, I mean, one, I'm sure it's more fun to play because there are all those extra options of things to do. But as a viewer that has not played the game, it just like what are you doing? Like you're going after a chicken, you're going after bones, you're going after lockpicks, you're going after fences. Like it's just, there's so much going on, and like you're not in the thought process of the person playing it. So as a viewer, it's really hard to comprehend like what the goal is. On top of that, when you die, you just die. It's like if a killer chops you up, you're just on to the next game.
Yeah.
Like Dead by Daylight did a really good job of like, okay, if you lose, you get stuck in a position and your team being coordinated can come save you. You're not like, it's not just like back to the lobby and another loading screen. I really like that about Dead by Daylight.
Well, hold on, let me clarify some things, because this is, I feel like there's some inexperience coming out in these criticisms, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
me.
you look like an asshole.
And you can be killed in Dead by Daylight too, and back to the lobby with you. The Dead by Daylight's loop is you can get hooked twice, meaning the killer can hit you, down you, and hook you, and each subsequent hook, I think the third hook
is
will
hooking.
be.
That's when you carry them to the basement and actually place them on.
It doesn't have to be
right?
the basement. There's meat hooks like all over the map.
But you're like putting them in a mobile state they have to try to get saved from.
So in Dead by Daylight, the killer is a lot more powerful, and like two hits will down any character. Some killers can do even one hit downs, and once downed, basically a victim can't do anything. They can just kind of crawl around slowly. So the killer picks them up, puts them on a meat hook. First time, okay, you've got a pretty long timer. Second time, your timer's like cut in half. Third time, instant death.
Yeah, but exactly to my point, you have 3 chances to get back in the game, right?
Well,
in
kind of.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're done.
Kind of yes, kind of no. Because like I said, the killer's a lot more powerful in Dead by Daylight. So in 1 to 2 hits, you're downed and you're getting hooked. In Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the killers are much weaker. It's significantly harder to kill someone in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Actually, one death is permanent, but to get someone's health pool down is way harder, takes way longer, and they have a lot more avenues of escape that are permanent.
It feels super earned. None of that stuff feels bad. Like, I don't know in Dead by Daylight if there's like that verticality to it where you're in the basement level, right? You got the basement level they all start in. They find their way out, which is relatively easy because sometimes that shit happens within like 15 seconds, I swear to God. And once they get up to the surface, which is like, say, a small farmstead, something like that, there's like wells that lead back down into the basement. And there's other ways like stairs and then actual drops. And that's one of the main ways they get away from me when I'm chasing them is either they go through obstacles I can't follow, or they just gun it for one of these wells and just go, hup! and so like it ends up in this thing where you're with the other killers and you're like, they're in the basement! They jump down and like while that person's down there, they're like temporarily stunned. But once they get up and start moving again, like it's like that's their second chance. There's small ways to heal around the map that I actually just learned about in that last match. I didn't realize that was a thing because I've only played a victim once. And
they have health kits all over the place.
Yeah, it just seems like while there isn't multiple lives per person, your attention is split as a killer. Obviously, you got multiple people to worry about. but there's just the match is stretched out by those kind of things, because like they might get 90% to a thing, like getting a lock open to escape. You hit them, they realize they're had, they gun it, squeeze through something you can't follow, and it's like almost like that's their second life, because now they have less health.
Right.
Unless they amend that.
It's really difficult for like to 1v1 killer to pursue someone, because the skinny survivors can just slip away. So you actually need the coordination of the other killers to like triangulate on someone.
But can't the skinny killers do that also?
The skinny killers can, but they can't do it any faster.
No, and we're weaker. So like I play
even weaker than
skinny killer. I've been playing it's called the Hitchhiker. I like him because you can set three bear traps essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes it really nice to like. I've actually found myself. I was really proud of myself, like chasing someone in a certain way to actually try to guide them towards my traps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those traps, for me, aren't always an instant kill. I might catch them in one, catch up to them, get a couple hits in, but it takes so many hits that they can break out of it, take off. So unless I'm yelling to Red like, "They're in my trap! They're up top!" He pinches. Like we've had a lot of moments where we're screaming at each other to go or like cut someone off around the pass, and it's ended up with success. And it's just like, I don't know. Those kind of things feel so good.
Well, so this gets into actually the balance problem with the game. So anyone that has hours in the game right now will tell you the game is very imbalanced towards the victims, favored towards the victims right now. To be successful as the killers, you have to be very, very on top of communication. Exactly like Warren was describing. If you're not like triangulating on people, you cannot win. And in fact, you can literally escape the map in as little as 2 minutes.
What's the win condition for killers? Do you have to kill everyone?
I actually I like that you said that, and I like this about the game. I don't actually think there's a defined win condition for the killers. There is no you win, you lose screen. There is, as a survivor, you either lived or died, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as the killer, like, you could kill 2 of them and 2 of them get away. And because it doesn't, say, 2 got away, you lost. Like, I will still feel good playing a killer and getting 2 kills.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But what there is there's a point system and it's individually scored. I think there's some like pooled points, but like it's mostly individually scored. So like you can get away as a survivor, but you could have only scored 200 points, whereas someone that died might have had 1,600 points. And that tells you that person like did and accomplished a lot more. And those points are like they actually go to your account's experience, which you can then use for like stat points, stuff like that. So it's like it's a little arbitrary, which I think is actually a good thing. Rather than slapping people in the face with every round, you lost. It's like, well, I actually did really good that round. Even though I died, like I did good, or I didn't kill everyone, I did good. So I don't know many games that are like that, but I appreciate that they do that.
Yeah, I like that too. It's like an experience, system. It's like even if you die, as long as you ran around and you did enough things, you still won.
Yeah.
I like that idea too. So back to what you were saying earlier. So you said it takes a lot longer to kill survivors.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've seen Leatherface one-shot or two-shot people. Is that not correct?
So, that's actually a good point. I was going to bring that up when you were talking about that. That's another risk-reward scenario where, yes, he has the ability to... It's not a one-shot. I found this out. It's only if you're missing a little bit of health. Like, say I got, like, one swing on somebody as a weaker character, and they ran off. If Reb was playing Leatherface, you can do a thing where you hold right-click, and it's like a secondary ability where you can rev your chainsaw, and if you get it to a point of almost overheating, your character will hold it over his head, and that means he runs faster. And so, like, for a little bit, you can kind of feather it to, like, make it so that you're sprinting way faster, and if you swing down on someone at that moment, if it connects, it will do nearly their entire health bar. Yeah, so you can nearly one-shot somebody. And if it misses, if you don't get that swing in, if they juke you, your chainsaw overheats and you're stuck sitting there having to wait a second and then re-rev it up.
No, hold on. Not wait a second. For about 15 seconds, there is literally nothing you can do. You have to. You can walk.
15.
I would argue it's maybe like 10.
Yeah. Okay.
It's essentially saying we're gonna reset the chase. Like now, I get to go play hide and seek again and try to rediscover them because they definitely got away.
You physically cannot attack, and you can't even start your chainsaw up again because it's overheated. So it goes into like an overheat mode where all you can do is stand there and you can walk slowly around until you can stand still again, and then go through the process of revving your chainsaw back up to like start it, and then you can start playing again. So the risk reward is you have a chance to do massive damage if you can connect, but if they juke you and you hold it, rev it up for too long, and it overheats in your hand, you basically stun yourself for 15 seconds. Or if you miss the attack, or even if you hit them but they survive it, it's still going to overheat, it's still going to explode, and then you have to stand there. Which the survivors have a lot of ways to fight back in this game too. So if that happens, they can circle to your back and stab you in the neck with a bone and stun you for even longer. The community is actually super toxic. It's a really toxic community, unfortunately. A little bit like League of Legends in that sense. It's a very teabag heavy community. Anytime anyone has a leg up, they're just flexing on you the whole time. It's a little unfortunate. Survivors will often open exits and then place themselves to they're completely safe, but they won't actually leave the game. They'll just stand there and wait for you to find them so they can sit there and teabag over and over again and then leave. And it's just dude, come on.
That stuff adds some flavor. That stuff's funny. It would be funny, a way to combat that would genuinely be after 15 seconds, the gate slams shut again.
Yeah.
I think that'd be
there's got to be some that watching Red, that was one of the big frustrations I saw. If a survivor wants to hold you captive in a game forever, he can. Is there a time limit where the game shuts down eventually?
At a certain point, the grandpa will continue screaming. Okay, we can get into grandpa.
Let me clarify that situation. So, Warren, Xell was watching me play, and I had gotten into a game where I think I was Leatherface. No, I wasn't Leatherface, because I couldn't break down the shortcuts. I was one of the survivors, and
you're the girl.
Yeah, I said survivors. That's not correct. I was one of the
killer,
killers.
Yeah.
And Leatherface and the other killer disconnected, and so naturally everyone escaped, or maybe I killed one. I don't know, but everyone escaped, and then there was one survivor that remained, and the survivor refused to leave, exit. He was just running around stabbing me, stabbing Grandpa. And then, because there was no Leatherface, he could jump over the shortcuts that I couldn't. So I had to just stand there. And I was well, do I just Alt F4? Or I want the points that I've accrued this game. And the person was literally just holding me hostage. And it was so miserable. And I realized that there was no safeguard in place to punish survivors for just running around the map being miserable bitches.
He was literally just standing on the other side of this obstacle that Red couldn't get over, and there was just nothing he could do.
Yeah, if it was just even just one-on-one, there's no. The game isn't designed to expect that.
Yeah,
but they need to figure that out. If they disconnect, it should I don't know. They're never supposed to be not there, so it should just I don't know. I from as drastic to ending the match and giving you a small point bonus to, I don't know.
NPCs taking over the killers, something.
Yeah, NPCs taking
timers,
over the killers.
Something.
Let other characters shoulder charge through those barbed wire things, something.
Yeah, so that was the most miserable experience I've had with the game so far, where I realized that this is some fundamental flaws in the game. That being said, I AFK'd in that game so long that this person lost interest and was just running around collecting infinite points. I fucking found her. I fucking found her and killed her ass. So it was very satisfying at the end, but it was pretty miserable nonetheless.
That's great.
Okay, there's not really, I don't think, a ton more to say about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's fun. I don't think it's gonna last forever. It'll be interesting to see what they do
now. Maybe if you're free after this. Actually, I'd be down to do a couple matches. You got me hyped up for it.
Oh my god.
Yeah. We can touch on just do a little darker update, and then call it. We're at an hour now.
Yeah. Let's hear it, Xell. I think you've been pretty much exclusively playing Dark and Darker, right, for the last few weeks.
Yeah, Yeah, pretty much. That's all I've been playing. I mean, couple big changes, man. They're doing a really good job releasing patches pretty much every week, and they feel pretty significant. Some of the big ones recently, they made all the classes free to play, which was really cool because as of like 2 weeks ago, there was a currency you had to earn, which took forever to earn to unlock them. So they took the feedback from the community, they made those free, they refunded everyone that bought them. I thought that was really cool. And I've been playing one of the new classes, Warlock, quite a bit, and it's powerful.
Well,
It's powerful.
powerful is one word for it. Maybe there's alternative words.
Broken?
Strong as I would.
Is that the word?
Some other things, they nerfed healing pretty significantly this week, which I thought was an interesting change. They made it so potions now take twice as long to heal you, from like 20 seconds to like 40 seconds, and the healing did not increase. So that's a big nerf to potions. And then on top of that, you used to be able to apply bandages that would give you a chunk of health back. Now it only restores your health that can be restored. I actually don't know what the name for that is.
Recoverable health.
Yeah, recoverable health. When you take damage, you can like recover 50% of the health from like resting, but you can't recover 100% of it. Now bandages are tied to that recoverable health, so pretty hefty nerf to healing.
I like that.
Yeah,
As long
I
as they
think in
also
general I
nerfed
do too.
the Warlock's healing.
They did
Nope.
not. The Warlock is not finished. I mean, it only has 4 spells right now, and the spell book has like 10 slots, so it's definitely not finished. They have a lot more work to do there, and yeah, like you guys are kind of pointing out, the Warlock has a couple abilities where he'll sacrifice a couple points of health to do damage to something, and then if you land that dot on the person, you will slowly regenerate health back. Well, there's a lot of items in the game that give
You said slowly regenerate health back.
Well, yeah, with no bonuses, it's like a point of health a second, something like that. Which it lasts for 10 seconds, I think. So you sacrifice 5 health to cast the spell, and then you regenerate 10 health, 1 health per second over the duration of the dot.
Okay.
Now, where this gets broken is that there's a bunch of pieces of gear in the game that increase your magical healing. Like, 1 point of magical healing just doubled the healing effect of that dot that you put on them. So people are just stacking like 7, 8, 9, 10 plus magical healing. And it's like, you'll dot something and you're literally healing 10% of your health per second, and it's incredible. It's amazing to play.
Yeah, that whole sacrifice health to do your spell like seems like a really good trade-off until
you heal back quadruple what you're sacrificing every second.
if it's gonna be like that, there should be like, I don't know, at the very least like a cooldown on your spell. Maybe if you're not gonna do the wizard route of expelling spells, you should at least have a cooldown, because the alternative is just take away the healing, which is gonna make it feel bad. Like it should still feel good. It should still feel like you're healing something worthwhile when you do that shit. But yeah, I watched this streamer named Mason, and it was just like running in, dot, dot, dot. His health would go boop, 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 and he'd be like, all right, good to go. And then he'd just like take off and kill 10 people. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
There's some balance issues on that character specifically.
Okay, I'd love to dive into some of that. But I played with Xell last night, and I watched him he was literally at like 3 HP in the Dark Storm that does damage per second to you. And I watched his HP go from like 1% to full in probably 5 seconds. Because he was dotting skeletons as he was running through. So he could literally stay at 100% HP while in the Dark Storm. And it was just like, dude, how is this not state of emergency for this game? Which I really like Dark and Darker, but their balance right now is, in my opinion, such an abysmal state. So you talked about the healing nerfs. I feel like you just said them, but I feel like I saw you saying you disagreed with those nerfs. Like you didn't think they were a good idea. Isn't that true?
Well, it makes sense for squads, which the game is based on squads. I think what the problem with those healing nerfs, what it does is it forces cleric to become necessary in team games because you can't really heal without it. And I don't really like forced metas in that way. And for solo play, you pretty much get your 1 life, and if you mess up and I mean, like, as a rogue player, a goblin will two-shot me. So it's like, now I'm not afforded like any mistakes, and it's just really hard to get through a map with,
Isn't that their intention though?
I don't know. It's hard to tell because I do think that healing is probably not the best. And we've talked about this before, but I think the less healing in games, the better.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't also have everything one-shot you if you're going to do no healing. Like, the amount of times that a fighter or a barbarian or like a warlock will walk up and literally hit me one time, and I will go from full to dead in gear. I mean, it's every day. Like, the damage on everything is just scaled up way too high, in my opinion.
Well, and this is actually, I think, probably what I would also consider like state of emergency. One of the most fundamental problems with the game is, you know, we talk about like build diversity in games, and I'm surprised you haven't really like, at least I don't think I've heard you talk about this before, but there really is no build diversity in Dark and Darker, and that even spans like multiple classes in the sense that pretty much the single most valuable stat in the game for most characters is just simply flat plus weapon damage. And the reason is for what you described, right? Like, if you have +7 weapon damage across, you know, on your character across whatever all your pieces of gear, like, you're just gonna beat everyone else. And so the game becomes like almost this race for just like how much plus flat damage can I get on all my gear, and then run out and one-shot everyone.
Yeah, that definitely happens a lot.
Yeah, I think that it's those markets, right? Like, you're able to sit there and pick and choose, and like if there is something that's exploitable even slightly, like you can go into those markets and just see people selling that stuff, and as long as you've accrued enough, you can just build out your character to be actually broken. If it doesn't pan out, you just actually break them again. I feel like that marketplace kind of thing in a PvP game where those stats matter just feels so bad to me.
You talking about the trading post?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that's a good one. I'd love to kind of like maybe discuss that too, because, you know, one, you know, aside from I think they could be doing so much more interesting stuff with gear, but they've hamstringed it to just give me as much flat weapon damage as I can get. Besides that, what do you guys think? I mean, I guess Warren, you just kind of expressed it, but Xell, like, what do you think about the trading market? Is it good for the game? Is it bad for the game? Should it be changed in some kind of way? Like, what are your just thoughts on it?
I think for this game, it's probably necessary. I don't know how I feel about it in general. I think as a group, we probably tend to lean more towards like solo self-found type of gameplay, which I find much more interesting and makes playthroughs, you know, have a lot more life to them and things feel more rewarding. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it's really easy to just accrue 300-400 gold, go out and buy the best set of gear you'll ever see, and but I mean, at the same time, it's so easy to die in the game. Like most times when I go out and I buy, you know, like a big dick set, I donate it to like the first person I see, because, you know, I go in, I get into a fight that I'm not ready for because I feel overconfident, and, you know, naked rogue takes everything that I have. So I don't know. It's hard. I think they're probably scared of people dying being like too much of a risk, and therefore never using the gear if they didn't have the trading market. I don't know. I think it's another maybe balance issue that they'll have to address at some point. Higher trading fees, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, something like that. It's funny because, like, yeah, I was nervous to get in there. You first see the trading market, you're like, what the fuck is this? And then I realized, like, all the garbage I'm picking up, I can sell and get enough gold after one run to deck myself out with the necessary stuff to be, for what it's worth, I've been playing fighter. Just because in games, I get very overwhelmed when it comes to spells or any kind of additional mechanic that goes along with spells. So, like, someone's like, yeah, you can play the wizard, but then you use your spells, and then you gotta sit, and, like, then you do, you know, it's just like, or these potions bring them back over time, all that kind of stuff. I was like, just give me a sword. I'll figure it out. Just give me the sword. I don't need the metas. Just give me a sword. And it's apparently worked out because fighter feels decent usually.
Fighter's amazing.
Yeah, I generally just sprint at someone, and either it goes great or it goes terrible.
As far as the balancing stuff goes, though, and you bringing up magic, they did in this most recent patch, they reduced magical damage attributes by 50%. So I think they're starting to take like large swings at the scaling issues. Like I think they're aware of it. But yeah, magic damage bonuses across the board were reduced by 50% this last patch.
God, dude. Anytime I saw something with a spell being cast, I would just... My inclination is to leave. Like I'm sitting there with a sword, and there's like some dude going... And he's like, okay, now he's glowing orange. Now he's got a bubble around him. Now he's fucking launching fireballs. I'm like, I can't with you.
I think they were having issues with like high level casters running amok, so they harmed the top end of caster stuff. But to compensate for that, they increased the low end caster damage, which is probably a good thing because it was pretty awful to play caster ungeared. Which so this one's coming from Akumos, so shout out to Akumos. But Akumos had called out, I've noticed, that there is a massive discrepancy between geared and ungeared characters, and I think this ties into the complexity around the issue of like the trading market and things like that too. How unbelievably significantly stronger you are with gear versus without, I think is going to become problematic, especially in the face of, and this is another topic that I think maybe Xell you've avoided a little bit, but like, there's no matchmaking in the game. So streamer X opens up the trading market and 400 people give them the best gear in the entire game. Then that guy goes into a lobby full of a bunch of people playing for the first time, and he just kills everybody, and then rinses and repeats that all stream long. What are your thoughts?
I don't like matchmaking in general, but I do agree that there's a giant problem with streamers just taking streamer kits. I'm guilty of it as of last night, but it's hard because that trading post is available. It's like, even when you have a couple of viewers and you're playing and someone's like, oh hey, I found this sword, do you want it? And I'll be like, I'll buy it from you. They're still like cutting you deals. So it's like a really weird line to like try to balance, because like, well, if I wasn't streaming and my buddies found a sword, they would probably just give it to me and no one would bat an eye. Mm-hmm. But big streamers, I mean, even selling things, it's like infuriating, because they will find a green sword and they'll go, hey chat, who wants to buy this green sword? And then they'll open up the trading market and it's just like trade request, trade request, trade request, and then people just giving them 500 gold for a shit 50 gold sword. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you mitigate that?
Well, I mean, you don't, right? Unless you remove the market. Mm-hmm. Like by having the market, you invite this. Like this is what's going to happen. But more so, what I was getting at, I think that sucks. Like it's an unfortunate thing about game. Every online game where there's some kind of trading available, that's going to happen. It sucks. It ruins the game to some degree, depending on what the game is. May or may not be more significant. But what I was getting at more so is, I think it's more significant in Dark and Darker because there is such a discrepancy between geared and non-geared characters. So like, what do you think about the idea that a fully kitted out guy can just hot drop into a lobby of a bunch of noobs and just erase the entire lobby and then rinse and repeat that all day long?
Yeah, I don't mind that a geared person can drop into a naked lobby, but it does bother me that a geared person can literally one-shot everyone they run into. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I've said this to you guys before, but I think they need to nerf all damage done by everything by like 75% in Dark and Darker. Like, in my opinion, the longer a battle lasts, the more skill shines, and that's the kind of fights I want to see. Like, fighter with like a sword and a shield, like two fighters going at each other with a sword and a shield, and they're like blocking each other's attacks and like swinging for their ankles. Like, those are the most fun interactions in the game to me.
Well, we encountered a guy, so what you just proposed, right, was like, okay, reduce everyone's damage by like 75%. You and I encountered a guy last night. He was a very geared up fighter, and he had over 70% damage reduction.
Huge problem.
Right. So it's like, even if both of us did 75% less damage, that would just mean that we were tickling him even less than we already were tickling him, and he'd still chop us up. I mean, he two-shot you, right? Almost one-shot you. And
he would have one-shot me if he hit me with the second hit first.
Yeah. And you know, I folded pretty much instantly afterwards. I don't even remember how he killed me. He just walked up and chopped me, I guess. But you know, if he was doing 75% less damage and so was I, like it's still the same result.
Yeah, I mean the gear also can't give you 75% damage reduction. You know, it's like obviously the gear is way overtuned. They need to bring it back probably 75% across the board as well. But yeah, it's just like right now it's way too easy to do way too much damage and just make everything, including other players, trivial.
I don't know. Bringing it back, we keep spinning back into gear, but the thing Reb was bringing up was MMR specifically. Like
Yeah, I think MMR sucks.
Like skill-based matchmaking.
Trash.
Why? What the thing? Okay, my twist is that like Red is a person. I think you are to a degree. Like you love a Souls game. You love to start a game and hit the hardest difficulty, right? Because you want a challenge because it feels good. But you're saying we should afford people that are good at these multiplayer games the opportunity to jump into a lobby and get to play on easy mode. As opposed to if skill-based matchmaking existed, they get put into a lobby with people of their same caliber, or at least as close to it as the game can manage at that time, so that you're having an engaging experience and not playing easy mode. You're not playing easy mode, because if I jumped into a lobby with these people that like to go into threes solo and dominate naked as a rogue because they're good, hey, what do you think you're doing? Okay,
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think it's always easy mode. You know, it's like, it's random. You load in, everyone in the lobby could suck. Everyone in the lobby could be the most geared people ever, and you could actually be the easy mode. I think MMR in some games makes sense, like Rocket League's a great example. Like, no one would play 1v1 or 2v2 Rocket League if there was no matchmaking. Like, that's a game where you have to have something like that, so it's balanced. But Battle Royale type games? For Rocket League?
No.
Yeah. So yeah. So I like what you just said, but I want you to expand on why you think it would be good for Rocket League, but not good for other games.
Yeah, I think it's necessary for Rocket League because 1v1, you know, a match lasts, I don't know, get Warren, what do you say, 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe?
Match Rocket League? 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a 5-minute match, and
5
then
minutes.
the clock stops when you're watching replays.
A brand new person playing 1v1 against a pro would just leave. Like they wouldn't play the game.
Yeah.
Whereas in battle royales, it's much more RNG based, where it's like, hey, there's 15 people in here, 10 of them could be brand new, just like you, and it could be even fights, and then 3 could be average and 2 could be amazing.
I mean,
don't you think it would be a better game if it was even fights for everyone across the entire lobby?
yeah, like I don't see a negative to having it be an even fight all the time. Like, why should
The negative is you never get better. You know, every match is equal difficulty. You know, you play a game like in League of Legends, you play a game for 15 years, you're now a Grandmaster, you're sweating just as hard in that Grandmaster game as you were in the Bronze games for all 15 years.
But
Sounds
that
like
means, that every win feels good, right? Like,
how does the Rocket League player get better with matchmaking then?
I don't care about getting better. The getting better thing to me is like irrelevant. That's like chasing, like I'm chasing the next medal. I want to hit silver. I want to hit gold. I want to hit platinum. I think for things like Rocket League, that makes a lot of sense for matchmaking. Battle Royales aren't really like that. Like you're not trying to chase Grandmaster.
so if you're not
There's
chasing
rankings.
that,
There's rankings in BRs. So you don't think there should be rankings or leaderboards in Dark and Darker then?
No, I like leaderboards. For the people that want to chase it, they should have that option.
Shouldn't there be some kind of matchmaking then, so that those leaderboards have some kind of fairness and like ladder climbing ability?
No.
yeah, that's like saying like, okay, there's leaderboards for the amount of touchdowns that a quarterback has gotten, but he also got to go over and he was allowed to play a pickup game on a middle school football field, and so we're actually going to count the 15 touchdowns he got in the last 25 minutes. Because it, you know, even though he's playing against people that are obviously quantifiably worse, like if I jump in and he kills me and it's like, oh, count that kill, but also count the kill that he spent 5 minutes, like using his brain and skills to try to figure out, to rank him amongst his peers in that way. I think it's the same. It kind of feeds back into the conversation we want to have about like hackers. Like I worked with a guy, first person I ever met in real life that admitted to it, but he was a proud hacker in those games, and he's just like, oh yeah, man, I'm so good. It's just like you're not playing the same game, and the same to an extent is true of pros in these kind of games, like Ninja in at least early Fortnite when I would like watch some of it versus a guy who obviously didn't know what he was doing, and you'd be playing that game and see someone build a goddamn Marriott hotel while you're sitting there like trying to work the keyboard, and it doesn't seem like it should be as satisfying of a thing. It isn't to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see a lot. I don't feel like I've yet to hear one either of like a logical or sound argument that argues against that. Like I can't see the argument so far that it's a good thing that Ninja can drop into a lobby of 13-year-olds playing their first game and just wipe them all. And then I guess the argument is, well, now those 13-year-olds are all better. I don't know if that's true. I think
they got sniped across the map. Do you feel skill?
I
don't
feel
think they're necessarily better.
I think what's better for everyone across the board, better for Ninja, better for the kids playing for the first time, is that they're generally matched with people that have some degree of similar statistics, and there's still going to be variability there, right? To where, you know, you get to engage, I think, in the combat and the mechanics more than just like, here's this guy that can one-shot me instantly, and I didn't even get to play the game. And
like
for that person, they didn't have to play the game either. Like, I think it's just lose across the board everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Ninja put in 12 hours a day for 4 years to be that good at Fortnite, and he deserves to shit on people that haven't played the game. Like, and the people that have not played the game watch a guy style all over them, and they're like, how the hell did he do that? I want to be able to do that. He goes to a stream, he watches him, he learns up on tutorials. Like, I think it's really healthy for battle royales.
So you think smurfing's good?
No, I don't like smurfing.
But based on the argument you're presenting, the same ideology applies. Someone who's played 15 years is really good at the game now. Don't they deserve to shit on a bunch of bronzes?
Well, smurfing is taking advantage of a system that already has matchmaking in place.
But you're saying there shouldn't be matchmaking, right?
Yeah.
Not in Dark and Darker. But there can be matchmaking in Rocket League, and I think that makes sense. But yes, it would be wrong for a Smurf, you know, a Grandmaster Rocket League player, to go create a bronze account and play in bronze.
So I'm having trouble delineating then where you think there should be matchmaking and where there should be matchmaking. Because I'm hearing you say matchmaking is shit, but I'm not understanding where it's shit versus where it's not shit, other than you're just saying Dark and Darker shouldn't have it.
I think battle royales in general should not have matchmaking. I think that is part of the Hunger Games experience. You know, it's like 15 contestants go in, the best one comes out. It's not 15 contestants that are equally matched with equal skills, equal knowledge, go in with equal weapons, and the one that was in the best position comes out. Like, battle royale makes sense to me with no matchmaking. That's why H1Z1 was so fun. It's like 100 people drop into a lobby. You know, I'd put 400 hours in. I'm going to beat people that had 1 hour, but people with 1,000 hours are going to destroy me. And I'm going to learn from that person that, you know, put in 1,000 hours, and the person that had 1 hour hopefully learns something from me.
I'm glad you said H1Z1, because where did H1Z1 end up?
I mean, all games die. Eventually, all games die.
Do you think that maybe it was unhealthy for the player base to drop into lobbies with the top skilled players, just wiping them every game, and they never got to see a victory screen because the top players got the victory screens every game? You don't think that
you end up with 5% of people getting the chicken dinner every time. Like 95% of the time, that 5% gets it, and everyone else is like, well, I guess I tried. But if you took that player pool of 100,000 people and you allowed it to be fully random, like the chance that one of those 100 people in your match being that insane person getting to take the victory, like you have to develop games with everybody in mind together and make sure that you're creating a game that everyone can have fun in.
Yeah, see, that's called catering to the...
You're catering to everybody
instead
of being
you're catering to the casuals.
Most people are casuals.
Well, I don't think that's catering to the
die.
casuals, because your hardcore sweaty powerful people are in the hardcore sweaty powerful lobbies, and you get those high intensity, high competitive gameplays of pros versus pros. I don't
You're
think that's
saying
catered to the casuals.
I think by doing that, you're going to kill a game so much faster because only 5% of your player base is going to stick around.
Exactly.
Because 95% are going to get their ass kicked, have a bad time every time.
Which is what happened with H1Z1.
I can say the opposite for Fortnite. It hasn't happened with Fortnite.
Fortnite has matchmaking.
It did not the entire time it's been created, though.
And it's blown up more over time.
Because the skill gap kept getting pushed, they had to add. Just like the same reason in Rocket League, looping back to that, they had to add ranks. It used to end at a certain point, and they actually added like 4 ranks on top. They added 3 more with a tier, and then like the top, because the skill gap kept increasing because people learn new things, got better and better, and they expanded on it because of that exact reason. And I'm sure as time goes on, I would not discount the idea that they add more ranks, because those people now that are at the very top, the worst one in that very top rank versus the best one is probably the entire disparity between bronze and that top rank right now. You know what I mean? Like, as those things expand, you have to account for that, or else it's going to start leaving people behind.
But that makes sense for Rocket League because it's 1v1, 2v2, 3v3. If there was not matchmaking, you would always be versing someone significantly better than you, and it would be miserable. It's not like that for VRs. VRs, you run into people of equal skill all the time because the games are so large.
I think it works better. I think your point does work a little better when it comes to these kind of games, like Extraction, as opposed to BR. I think when it comes to BR, there is still one winner in a group of 100. Everyone else left out, and I think that's why this is a good expansion of that, because you can still kind of try to get away, run and hide, and still extract and feel okay about it. But
I could concede with this extraction subgenre of BR. I could concede it a little bit, but I would still make the argument that no MMR is still a net negative. And I think it's going to be the type of thing that's still going to cater to ultimately, the top 10 streamers of Dark and Darker are just going to be wiping lobbies nonstop, and I think it's just going to push people out of the game until the player base becomes, like Warren described, just that top 5%. And especially as like gear discrepancies grow over time, like there's no way for a new player to jump in and be like, hey, I want to try out Dark and Darker today. Let's see what this game's all about. Jump in on their level 1 rogue in gray gear, and everyone's running around in ruby forged purples, chopping each other's heads off. And it's just like they're creating a barrier of entry that I think is going to be impossible to get into. And no matchmaking, no barrier, no protection against that. No kind of like, even if it's not like a ranking, but just some kind of like maybe even gear check to kind of like shuffle people into like relatively similarly geared lobbies, in the absence of that kind of thing, I think it's going to significantly harm the player base in a
yeah,
very
I mean,
short time.
I think we already agreed that gear is a major problem in the game. They have to do something about it. Like, you can't just have one geared player being able to one-shot everyone in the lobby. It doesn't make sense. But yeah, big scale BRs, I'd still argue that matchmaking doesn't really make sense. I don't think everyone that plays the game should get a win. I think every new player, if they got a win all the time, the wins would diminish in value.
Oh, I would agree. I don't think either of us are arguing that, though. But what we are arguing is the ability to get a win is achievable if everyone in the lobby is at least in the ballpark of some kind of skill level similar to you, versus it's virtually impossible if you've got pro NFL players in the lobby with Little League players, right?
Yeah, it's like saying, like, let's do a real life battle royale, right? But it's like it's just a one about punching, and you put a bunch of novices that don't know what the fuck they're doing, like fucking high schoolers, and then you drop in Conor McGregor, and it's like, no man, this is fun for everybody. This is fun for everybody. We got like it's just, you don't need the MMR. Let's just have the one professional and then a bunch of novices, and let's just see what happens. Unless they gang up on him, which is against the spirit of the game, he's gonna win. You know what I mean? Or plug in any famous fighter or professional in that thing. It's like there's always that gap, and it's just always gonna end up, aside from weird, buggy situations. Like when you'd watch I used to watch a lot of BR. I watched a lot of PUBG when I was playing that, back fucking 7 years ago, whatever it was. And, the person I would watch would generally win the game or die to, a hacker or a fluke, like some kind of extreme situation.
We need a hacking episode. We need it.
Oh, I know. I wish there was.
Let's dive into hacking next.
No.
After
Oh.
Tamers. Tamers is next. We're gonna do Tamers
Yeah.
next for anybody who's wondering.
Tamers and hackers.
We could probably combine those two into an episode. Totally
Hacking
unrelated.
tamers.
I mean, people probably do. Actually, that's true. People do hack in Monster Tamer games.
I blame this all on Game Shark. Game Shark is really what led us to our demise.
How is that legal?
No, I don't
Game
know.
How is that legal?
Game Sharks were great because there wasn't online multiplayer. It was always with your friends. Like you couldn't Game Shark one dude on the split screen.
Yeah.
Hacking has always been a problem with the first instance of hacking, in my opinion, for multiplayer would be looking at your friend's screen while doing split screen.
Screen hacking.
I have a buddy I grew up with, and if there was any chance he listens to this, he knows exactly who I'm talking about. He would not look at his own screen. I was convinced he never actually had his eyes on his own screen, so people would have to put in place like sheets taped to the TV screen over to one side of the room so he couldn't see what you were doing because you just couldn't trust him. Hacking has always been shitty. It always will be.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll dive deep into that, but I think at an hour and a half we should probably close this one out.
I don't even like you guys, so yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, it's been awful the entire hour and a half. But I will say, just aside from all those big gripes and obvious issues we have with certain mechanics that others don't, my play of Dark and Darker has felt good for the most part.
Oh man, I love it. Yeah, I love
do
the
the
game.
solo caves. I more often than not die to PvE because I'm not very good.
PvE is hard, man. It's really challenging. It's
I
even
get
when you're really
overwhelmed
good.
I'm just bad at the game, but I still have fun when I'm playing it. I get out with just enough to sell off and like buy a new helmet. And I've been doing something that you kind of pushed for the beginning, which is like, if you got good gear, just throw it on. If you lose it, whatever. Like you'll get like, don't hoard, don't worry about min-maxing, just jump in and do it that way, which obviously puts you at a disadvantage against people that are obviously min-maxing. But
Yeah.
it's a fun way to do it. Just take it. I take those kind of games very light because I don't stick around with them super long.
Yeah, which I think with
fun.
Dark and Darker, like that's the only way you can do it right now because I mean, quite in my opinion, I will be the minority here, but in my opinion, I think the game's balance in gear and all that stuff is just in an abysmal state. So it's like it's fun to jump in, but like you just basically have to already pre-accept that a bunch of
No, I
people
agree. I
abusing
hate
all
that.
the broken stuff is like you just stand no chance.
I think in these kind of games, adding gear to it is, I hate it. I mean, that's why I like the PvP in, say like a Sea of Thieves, something like that, where it's just like always a level playing field aside from the skill gap, which Sea of Thieves also does skill-based matchmaking to a degree when it comes to the one thing where you can engage in PvP, because it's always good to have that.
I also think just on that point of going in with best gear all the time, especially while Dark and Darker's in early access, like they're gonna do frequent wipes.
Yeah.
Like you're just gonna lose all your stuff no matter what, anyways. So yeah, I pretty much always make it a point to go in with my best version of everything, and just have fun with it.
Yeah, that's like to that point. Like they did the wipe yesterday or Monday, right?
It's
Monday,
coming Monday,
yeah.
2 days.
It's coming Monday.
2 days.
You're telling me that by the end of that Monday, I don't go into the top streamers thing and see that he's wearing like full purples?
Oh no, you absolutely will because they
get
just
fed.
take handouts. Yeah, they get fed by everyone, and gosh, I wish that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, it sucks. What if it just there's really no way to combat it? Like,
I wonder if the game would just be better without the trading post. Like, I honestly think it would be a better game without it, because that means, when you die and lose all your shit, like, you've got to go earn your shit back. I think that's just better.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time to thinking of a reason not to argue that, because I do. The fact that you can take gear off of people's bodies kind of makes me think that the trading post is probably not necessary.
The trading boys.
Yeah,
like
you know,
that's
like-
the trading post, right? Like I kill you, that's my trade. I've taken your shit. That should be
Well,
the trade. Always.
And even worse, I've seen people in high roller lobbies kill a guy with the best gear in the game. He'll take all his gear, and then they'll go into the trading post afterwards, and he'll just give his gear back to them. And it's like, I watched the rank 1 and the rank 2 rogue do that the other day, and I was just like, bro, that is like, you are killing the
That's
entire
against the
purpose of the
spirit.
game.
It's against the
Yeah.
spirit of the game.
It really undermines it, yeah, for sure. Which, yeah, you know, I really can't think of a good reason either, where it's like the auction house just isn't undermining the point of the game. Because, yeah, and I said before, like, the game is a really great idea, and I think it has so much potential. I just think it needs a lot of work. I think getting rid of the auction house, the trading post, I think it would actually serve to do a lot of good, and especially even helping like fill in a lot of those discrepancies of, you know, super geared people and things like that, because you can't just keep all that shit in circulation. You know, put it all in the caves, man. Put us in the caves, make us fight for it. Like that would make Dark and Darker better. Make us all fight for it. I don't want to go against the same guy every time, knowing every single time I see him he's fully decked out in purples. I want him hungry and looking for gear.
Yeah, I think I could get on board with that.
Let's start a petition. We'll do that after we close this up.
Hey, you know, Diablo 3 did it. Diablo 3 started with the trading post and auction house, and they closed it down. It can't.
Real money.
Yeah.
That was so insane. Real money.
Blizzard, baby.
Yeah. I think we pretty much talked on everything we wanted to. I wanted to bring up Shredder's Revenge. I mean, I could. It'd probably be an extremely short thing because I'm just kind of saying I'm having fun with it.
Give it a 30-second synopsis.
So if anybody's familiar with the side-scroller beat-em-up games, there's a couple old Ninja Turtle ones specifically. They've had X-Men ones. There's all sorts of different kinds of them. But you move from left to right. You beat up enemies as they spawn in, and then you kind of move to the next segment of that level until you eventually reach a boss. And this game is great. It really shines when you're playing with people. And so it's on Game Pass. I've been playing couch co-op with my kids. I put it on the easiest difficulty. We run through and beat up characters, and I've been leveling up Michelangelo. He's the GOAT. But no, it's a lot of fun. It's set fully in the, you know, Ninja Turtles, everything. So it's very fun, very radical. A lot of skateboards, a lot of thick computer monitors, pizza everywhere. That's how you level. And I think it's a really faithful continuation of those genres that if you enjoyed Turtles in Time, which was a big one that we played as kids, it feels like the actual sequel that could have come out, you know, a week after that game.
Love that game.
Same visual fidelity. There's even a version of it that is like there's a thing in the menu where you can set it to CRT or VCR, so it actually overlays an old school look onto the game, and it's just it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. I think I can actually hear my son playing it right now. And on the hardest difficulty, it's actually extremely punishing. So playing with that one easy kind of levels it out for me, where it's just like I'm you know kind of carrying him a lot of the time, and it makes it engaging and good party game.
Yeah, cool shout out for the game. You know, I think we can probably start coming to a close here. You know, some of you guys have been asking for, you know, a little bit more disagreement, a little bit more a little bit more debate, and I think you know, we kind of explored that a little bit this episode. So
talk about
peppered it
MMR,
in.
it'll always land there.
I mean, you know, so I think with anything, right, we'd love to hear, you know, if you've listened this far, first of all, thank you, like and subscribe. You know, we'd love to hear your feedback on anything we've talked about, whether it's just feedback on the games, thoughts, ideas, feedback on, you know, how we approach things, you know, how we debated, how we argued. Maybe you loved it, maybe you hated it, right? Just let us know. We'd love to hear, you know, anything. Our socials, right? Our Twitter is No Potion Podcast. Our YouTube is Out of Potions podcast. God, I forgot all our socials.
I think it's just Out of Potions. I
think so.
think if you just look
Yeah.
up Out of Potions, we're at the point now with the uploads that it actually shows up. If you just type that in the search bar,
Great.
it pops. If you're not watching it there now. I had an issue with the Spotify trying to put the last one up, so I think there's only the one on there. But now I looked it up and I couldn't search it. Maybe there's some weird shit with Spotify. I don't know. Maybe they pinged the song even though I licensed it legally. Maybe that popped. I have no idea.
Zell's
Either
been running
way,
the.
figure
Oh,
it
sorry.
out.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm just figuring that out.
Zell's been running the TikTok, which is what's the handle for that?
I think it's just Out of Potions.
Okay.
Yeah, if you search that on TikTok, it'll pop up.
Cool. So find us on any of those things. Like, subscribe, follow. Super helpful to us. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let us know any feedback. And I think that's it. I think we're done. Episode 3. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, small shout out to people like you mentioned, like there's a Kumos. There's a lot of people that are in our Discord that
Yes.
want to give suggestions, foster conversations. Shout out
Inky.
to all of you.
Yes.
Inky for the logo, the editing of the pilot. You know, just a ton of help on the back end. Shout out to my kids for allowing me to record for an hour and a half with little.
That
to
was
no
good.
interruption.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
They
that
did
was
good.
good.
It's kind of insane. There was a lot of right off camera just going like. but other than that, it's been great.
I'm glad you mentioned the Discord too. Join the Discord. We have some
join the
good
Discord.
conversations
We wanna-
going.
Want to get it pretty active in there. We can make an entire channel for MMR and it just can be a big roasting session. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, you know
I
what?
look forward to it.
You know, Warren, I'm glad you said it too. So I can make like 30-day Discord links, but I can't make the permanent one. I think there's like some settings or something you have to do because you own it. So I guess I didn't say that on the podcast, but we'll get permanent links out. So if you can't find the link, find any one of us on any of the socials and ask for the Discord link if the one that you see is expired.
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, I think that's it. Find us,
Peace.
listen to us, enjoy us,
Okay, bye.
kiss us. All right, bye.